In this section, we need to figure out how to convert repeating decimals to fractions. All right? Well, let's just quickly review how we do that with a finite decimal, not a repeating or a terminating decimal. Okay? So here's a decimal, 0.38. Well, how are we supposed to technically pronounce this? This is the 10th spot. This is the 100th spot. So isn't that technically 38 hundredths, which we could then write as a fraction, 38 over 100? We could reduce that. That divided by 2 is 50. I believe that divided by 2 is 19. And we've got ourselves a fraction, 19/50ths. So finite, really, the conversion for those really just depends on whether or not you know your place values, tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths, and so on and so on. Right? If you can say those, you can write yourself a fraction and you can reduce it. Well, with repeating decimals, it's not quite that simple. And we're going to have to do, I guess, what we'd call a little bit of algebra. We're going to have to write an equation and then maybe mess with that equation or change the way that equation looks and then do something with two equations. So let's see how that goes. All right? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the repeating decimal I'm given. I'm just going to write an equation that says, okay, x equals 0.3 repeating. So that's step number one, and it's really just write your equation. All right? I'm just going to say write an equation. All right? Then I am going to take this equation, I'm going to multiply both sides of it by 10. All right? So when I take x times 10, what do I get? Well, I get 10x. When I take 0.333 times 10, what happens? Well, I get 3.33 or 3.33 repeating. Now, if you'll notice, this is the fraction this is the decimal 0.3 repeating. This is the fraction 3.3 repeating. Is what's to the right of our decimal exactly the same in both of those? Yes. And so if I set up a little, if I wrote x equals 0.3 repeating right underneath that, and I subtracted those two equations, what's 10x minus 1x? Well, that would be 9x. What's 3.3 repeating minus 0.3 repeating? Well, isn't it 3? Don't these decimal parts just cancel out? And that's what we need to do in order to change repeating decimals to fractions. We need to get two forms, I guess you'd say, of that number that we can subtract and make the repeating decimal parts cancel out. Once we have 9x minus 3, we'll solve for x. So that's divide both sides by 9. X equals 3/9, which reduces to 1/3. So write an equation, and the next step was multiply that equation by 10, and step number 3 was do a subtraction to make the repeating decimal cancel out, and step number 4 was solve the equation, and you'll wind up with your fraction. Okay? So that's the process that we go through. Let's try another one, because sometimes it's not enough to just multiply by 10. Let me show you what I mean by that. Now sometimes just multiplying your original equation by 10 isn't enough. And so I think we can see that right here. Our initial equation here would be x equals 0.721 repeating. So we're looking to get another equation that has the right side of the decimal being 0.721 repeating. Well, let's multiply by 10. All right? And if you take 0.721, 721 times 10, you get 7.21721. So this decimal and this decimal the numbers to the right of the decimal are not exactly the same. And so we're going to have to multiply maybe by 100. So 100x, if I take this times 100, I'm moving the decimal 2 places. I'm going to get 72.1721. I still don't have anything similar to the right of the decimal. This is 0.721 repeating. This is 0.21721 repeating. This is 0.1721 repeating. So I better multiply one more time by 1,000. And now when you multiply this by 1,000, you move it 3 places. And now I get 721.721 repeating. So this equation and this equation have exactly the same numbers to the right of the decimal. And so those are the two equations that I'm going to subtract. What's 1,000x minus 1x? Well, it's 999x. What is 721.721 repeating minus 0.721 repeating? Well, those cancel out, and you just get 721. Solve for x, which means divide. And now you've got 721 over 999. We might want to look to see if that's reducible. Let's see if 721 is divisible by 3. Nope. I'm betting you, and if it's 721 divided by 9. Nope. That's probably a good answer then. Alright? Here, well, 3.42 repeating. So here we go. X equals 3.42 repeating. Okay, so 3.424242. Let's multiply by 10. If we do that, we'll have 34.242, and the repeating starts right there. So these two are not the same to the right of the decimal. So let's multiply by 100. Now we'll have 342.42 repeating. Now I've got two that are the same. I can do 100x minus 1x, that's 99x. 342.42 repeating minus 3.42 repeating. So those cancel out. 342 minus 3 is 339. Divide both sides by 99, and we get 339 over 99. Let's see if 339 is divisible by 3. We'll have to see here. 339 divided by 3. Yes, it is. That would give you 113 over 33, and that's probably as low as it's going to go. All right? Good luck with converting repeating decimals to fractions.